Welcome to the Artists Index. I'm Scott Bishop, your host for this episode. I'm a New Bedford-based singer, songwriter, and sound sculptor making music under the name Scapegoat. I also present the live concert series, Unexpected Music, which features South Coast musicians performing in non-traditional performing spaces around New Bedford. The In Focus podcasts are generously sponsored in part by Heavenly Spirits Importers and funded in part with grants from the New Bedford Cultural Council and the Fairhaven Cultural Council, local agency supported by the Mass Cultural Council, a state agency. I'd like to invite our guest to introduce herself, spell her name, and talk a little bit about what she does.
Hi, I'm Wendy Hall, spelled WendyHall, and I am the executive producer for the New Bedford Festival Theatre, which is the theater in residence at the Zeiterion Performing Arts Center in New Bedford, Massachusetts.
And Wendy, how long have you worked at the Festival Theatre?
So I have been on and off with Festival Theatre since 1990, the very first show that they did.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I was a high school senior, and it was the year between graduating high school and going to college at the Boston Conservatory. And that was the very first year that they did a show, and it was a summer show, La Cage aux Faux. And I was in the ensemble, and I was a cagelle. So I go all the way back to the beginning with Festival Theatre. During the early 90s, I performed with Festival Theatre. And then the mid to late 90s, I came back as a choreographer and a director and did that until 2003. Then I took a little break. Then formally came back in 2017 as an associate producer, then moving to producer, and now as executive producer since 2019.
What's it like basically having grown up with the Festival Theatre? You've worked with it at every phase as an adult, even late into high school.
It's a great training ground for my next step. So it was my very first professional job ever. So, as I wanted to be an actress, I wanted to be on Broadway. And so having this opportunity when I was 16 years old, I grew up in Acushnet, but having the opportunity to do a professional show so early on in life really solidified, my career choice at that time, and still. And so George and Armand and Festival Theatre have always provided me with the next step, which is always hard when you're moving up a ladder. It's sometimes it's really hard to find those opportunities for somebody to take a chance on you. But they really championed me the entire way. I mean, over 33 years. They've always, seen something in me that I had wanted to see in myself, but wasn't sure. And so they trusted me to, give me the job as the dance captain. And then, I proved myself and, we think you could be the choreographer for this show, and giving me the chance. And then, same thing with directing, and then ultimately for producing. So it's really like a home base for me, not only personally, but also in all things professionally.
What do you think they saw in you that you didn't see for yourself?
I think everybody has doubts somewhere, even the most confident person. And, when I was 8 years old watching Solid Gold on TV, I was like, I want to do that. But I don't want to do that as a hobby. I want to do that and make money at it. And, I was in, everything that a kid does. I took dance lessons, I took music lessons, I did drama, like a youth drama group. And, so I thought I could do it, but, it takes an adult, or it takes someone to look at you and say, yes, I think you can do it. And that's sort of like what gives you the confidence to make that leap. So, and then I think they really saw that I was not going to give up easily, and I still don't give up easily, and I have a lot of staying power. And, you know, that was really exhibited. So I went to New Bedford High School, and I grew up, like I said, I grew up in Acushnet. And when you live in Acushnet, you get to choose your high school. And, you know, my parents worked for Haven High School alumni, and they were so desperate for me to continue that tradition and go to Fairhaven High School. But, you know, this was 1986, and the New Bedford High School Drama Club was like very storied and award winning. And, you know, everybody thought of them as a professional theater because they, you know, they rented their sets and they built their sets, but they would rent their costumes from New York City, these, you know, Eves Brooks, which was a really, you know, famous costume house. And, you know, you were like really doing theater. It was not hokey theater at all. It, you know, it really felt like professional theater. And George and Armin really ran the program that way. You know, they expected professionalism from their students. And, you know, I, you know, grew up as a dancer. So like stepping in and somebody really like expecting something from me and making me work hard. I mean, that was just, you know, that's always been my MO. So, you know, freshman year, I, you know, thought, okay, I'm going to start at New Bedford High School, and I'm going to be in the drama club, and I'm going to get all the lead roles, and next stop, Broadway. And when I auditioned for Annie, I was cut. Oh. So it was really, you know, a moment that I was like, I can't believe this, you know, like they cut me. But then I had to decide what I was going to do with that. You know, was I going to give up on the whole thing because I was cut? And, you know, cut means you're cut. You're not in the show. You know, I didn't even get a call back. So, you know, I had some brooding and some crying in my room, and then, but it forced me to say, you know, like, okay, Wendy, like, do you want this? How do you get what you want? How do you achieve a goal? Okay, well, I work stage crew. And, you know, it was a bitter pill for me to swallow, but a necessary one, because that was the first time that I really understood that theater especially was not an easy gig. And, you know, especially with, you know, when you're a dancer or an actress, like you might be right for one show, but you're not right for another show. And, you know, you have to learn that really early on and understand what that means. So I went back the next year, and I was cast in The Music Man. And then, you know, I did My Fair Lady the year after that. And then I auditioned. So at the time, the Zeiterion produced their own shows in the summer. And they were producing 3 musicals, and I auditioned. George and Armin said, because they were directing those shows, so this is the year before Festival Theatre, and they encouraged their, you know, drama club students to come and audition, and I did, and I got in. So that was actually my first series of professional shows being produced by the Zeiterion. And, you know, I was like, I've worked professionally all year long. And, you know, I went back that fall and auditioned for Frankenstein, and I was cast as the understudy. So, you know, like, and I ended up going on to play that role. But, you know, it was those like 4 years where, you know, they weren't going to give me something that I was not right for or that I didn't earn. And that was, you know, definitely, I mean, I still think about that today, you know, like nothing, you know, I don't assume that I will, you know, I just don't assume that any job is not earned, and that you have to work at it every day to make yourself good at it. So
how does that inform your work as a choreographer, director, executive producer? Because you're also now on the other side of that, bringing other people in, and people are either going to get the job or not based on your feedback.
Yeah. So, I try to, here's the thing. A lot of people may not understand is that when people are auditioning for you and you're on a creative team, wherever that may be, if you're choreographing or directing or producing, like, you want every single person in front of you to be good. Mm-hmm. And you want every single person in front of you to be right for the role. And, obviously you can't hire everyone, but I mean, like, there's never a time when I was behind the table that I was like, ugh, I just want this over with. Or, like, I already know who I want. Let's just get through these people. So I really try to impart that on anybody I see either audition or that I work with, is that, I saw something in you, and I'm really proud and that you've chosen to come work here with us. But know that, if you're a singer and I need, like, really heavy dancers in this next show, this has nothing to do with your talent. This is just like where you fit in the matrix. And I think, and also that there may be shows down the road that I want to bring you back. And, I've gone through that, over the years. So after I left Festival Theatre, I worked all over the country in professional shows, and I did shows, of every level. Like I said, all over the country. And, I still think about my casts from all of those shows, like hundreds of shows. And I think, oh, well, I'm like, now we're producing The Wiz. So I think of all the people that I have worked with who might be right for it, and, reaching out to them. And these are like some people I haven't worked with in like 8 to 10 years, but, and I have a whiteboard list, and every show that we do, I try to think about who in my landscape of people that I know and that I have worked with, like, who did I like to work with? Who did I think was extremely talented? And who do I think I can put in front of directors and choreographers now that would work for us? So, I try to impart that, the wisdom of, it's a really small community. And as a musician,
yeah, everybody knows everybody else.
Everybody always knows everybody else, and there's always a path to somebody that So, just be a good person, show up on time, do what you say you're going to do. And, if you do that plus your talent, you will have a lifetime of work and success.
It's amazing. Excuse me. It's amazing how far being nice and being your word goes. Because who would you rather work with? The extremely talented person who's unreliable or difficult to deal with, or the less talented person who is going to be there and give their all every single time?
Right, exactly. And sometimes even if that person isn't as good as this other person, and usually the person that shows up and works hard and does what they say they're going to do, you can bring that out of them, right? So you can stretch what they initially gave in an audition. Like, I believe that you have more in you just because of your work ethic and and your personality, and because it's trust. Mm-hmm. Performers have to trust you. And if a performer doesn't trust their choreographer, their director, and their producer, well, you're not going to get the results that you want, no matter how talented they are. but if you create, and I've always tried to do that with my casts. This is, it's a big trust game. It's a big trust fall. and
Because everyone's got to be there for everyone else all the time.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we just did White Christmas this December. And, by the second weekend, because of illness, we had 5 understudies on stage. And
that had to be ready.
Yes. So we had 2 swings and 3 understudies. And, on Thursday, we had, one person had to, call out due to illness. And so we had their understudy come up, and then the swing had to come in. So a swing is somebody who is not in the cast, but they learn all of the tracks. So tracks meaning, so if we had 6 female ensemble members, the female swing, her job is to learn the show track of all those 6 females.
Oh, wow.
So yes, and then the same thing for the male swing. So the swings are really the true heroes, because they learn, and like on Broadway, like I have a friend who's a swing in Aladdin, and he has to learn 12 tracks.
Wow.
So these are people who their job is to learn all of these roles, and then be able to, with a couple of hours notice, just say, okay, you are doing track, you're doing track number 3. And they have to be able to just look through their notes. They have to know all the costume changes. They have to know all the props. They have to know any lines that they might have. They have to know their vocal parts. So for White Christmas, we had the female swing went in, the male swing went in, and then we had 3 understudies move up. So our last 3 performances, we had 3 understudies and 2 swings, and that was, talk about trust. So they're stepping into these roles, and a few of them only had, like 3 hours notice before they went on.
And how do they prepare for that? I mean, are they just studying the show, practicing in off hours, just because they have to know all the parts for their gender?
Yes. So there's a whole system of how to record all of this. There's software that, that our choreographer and our associate choreographer and our dance captain, they put it all in, but really, yeah, that's what it is. I mean, they have to sit there, and at one rehearsal, they watch one person, and at another rehearsal, they watch the other person. And then all of this is downloaded to a secure file. And then they go home and they have to watch the videos, and, because they have to, it's not only the steps, they have to know their marks. They have to know that, on this count, they're on, the number 12, because a stage is numbered. 0 is centered, and then it's numbered out. Oh. So it's stage left and stage right, it's 2, 4, 6, 8. And so that's how we all know where we're supposed to be. Like, I'm supposed to be standing on number 8 at this point, and then I move to 12, and then there's a lot of intricacies that go into art.
And math too.
And math, lots of math, yes. So going back to, those 5 people, and those shows were successful because of the trust that was created within the cast. And, the people who, the leads that, or the roles, like, knew that this person playing opposite them, they were coming in cold, but, it was, part of their job to sort of say, it's okay. Like, if you're off a little bit, like, I'll grab your arm and just move you where you're supposed to be. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of trust and a lot of love in theater.
And building a team. So when you're casting those individual people, how do you kind of, evaluate how people are going to fit together as an ensemble?
Yeah, so that is also a lot of tracking. So, we have to mark down everybody's height. We have to, we really do, because all actors have headshots. And so, a lot of times we like lay out the headshots on the floor and like say, okay, well, this person is with this person, and these are the heights, and then this person is and this person, and that's just basic math, really. But then we also have to, part of the audition is, not a formal interview, but just talking with everybody, seeing how they communicate with the accompanist. So when people come in, they have to go over, they have to have their sheet music, and they give it to the accompanist, and just really even how they like put their music down and explain and what they need or what they want, or their cuts from the accompanist. I mean, that goes a long way. It as part of trying to feel out personalities, and how are we going to build a team. So, and what's really interesting is that in pre-COVID times, we would have all these in-person auditions, and it was always so tantamount to have, so if people were playing a love interest, to have those people in the same room singing together, or reading a scene together, because it was all like, well, what if the chemistry is off? What if the chemistry is off? And, like, okay, let's try this person and this person and this person and this person. Well, now, because of, the world we live in and safety, for Beauty and the Beast and for White Christmas, we had no in-person auditions at all. And we cast the whole thing, both shows, through Zoom and through video submissions. And luckily, we had like a sixth sense about who worked well with who, because it really, both shows, we feel that we successfully cast with the right people and put together the right team.
And where are you pulling people from? So the actors, is it a mix of local, Broadway, or around the country?
So that's exactly what we do. We do a mix. So we love our, local performers, because they really give, they're like the base layer or the ground roots of any company. And we have several local performers that we love, and we also love that the community knows them. So, that is fantastic. And then we also reach out to performers in Boston, Providence, and New York City. And then, we also do a nationwide search. So we've had performers from California, Chicago. For instance, our music director for The Wiz is based out of Chicago. Her name's Christy Childs Twilley. So we do a huge nationwide outreach. I would say for the most part, we have, a core section of people that are local, and then a lot of people who are based out of Boston and New York City.
And in terms of show selection, what's the process for choosing what you're going to do in a particular season?
It's a lot of me waking up at 3 a.m. thinking, oh, I forgot about that, and that would be great. Or the opposite, like, what were you thinking, Wendy? That was a horrible choice. Cross that one off the list. So part of, when I took over as executive producer in 2019, part of what my mission or my goals were to build off the 30-year model that was created, and it was a very successful model, that we did 1 to 2 shows in the summer. And what I wanted to do was bring my experience and my knowledge of how to build a full season over the course of a year, so that we would truly have a professional year-round repertory theater company based out of New Bedford, Massachusetts. We are the only local company, professional company, around in this area. Probably the closest would be Trinity Rep in Providence, but they are, they don't do musicals, or they do like 1 or 2 musicals. So, we're really like looking at Broadway musicals. So these are shows that people in the area would either travel to PPAC in Providence or Boston to see a first national tour of, or if they really love theater, that they would go, all the way to New York City to see on Broadway. So these are, like institutional shows, and that's what our tent pole is. So I look at, what's popular right now, what's popular, what's been popular or trending in the past like 2 to 3 years. And then also like shows that I love. I've done a lot of shows. I have done a lot of shows. And one of the fun things about, doing shows all over the country is seeing how different audiences react to different shows. And so I know if, like, I've done West Side Story 6 times. And I know no matter what state I'm in, people respond really well to West Side Story. So that, I feel like, okay, that's a show that would span any audience anywhere. But then, like anywhere, the audience of South Coast of Massachusetts, there are definitely shows that I know that they would really take to and would really enjoy. And then I also know there are shows that probably, wouldn't sell, not because the show is bad, or not because the audience, it's just not a good match, right? So I have to find shows that match with our audiences and what they like, and also like what they might be willing to take a chance on.
What's an example of a show like that you've done in the past few years
that I love, that probably wouldn't fly?
but you've done, like, we're going to try it out with this audience, I think they're going to take to it?
Well, so we did the last 5 years. So that was back in the fall of 2021. And for those of you who don't know it, it's by Jason Robert Brown. It's a 2-person musical, and it's considered like a cult classic. So if you know it and you like it, you're like basically obsessed with it. And it is a show about a couple getting a divorce. So it's
serious subject matter.
And the show is told by the 2 characters. It's Jamie and Kathy, and they're the married couple. And it's told from 2 different. So Jamie is the husband, and he tells the story from the day that he meets Kathy to when he like leaves. And then Kathy tells it from the day that Jamie leaves backwards.
Oh.
So her last song is the day of their first date. And they're only on stage together one time, and it's in the middle, and it's the scene where they get married.
Oh, wow. That's
Yes.
a wild structure for a show. It sounds like Christopher Nolan's Memento.
Yeah.
Except with a couple. One going forward, one going back.
Yeah, you definitely have to like pay attention to the
timeline. What's happening? It's 2 timelines.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2 timelines, and like in terms of emotion, it pulls you back and forth. I mean, it's really like an emotional workout for people in the audience, because, she starts out and she sings, Jamie is over and Jamie is done. Jamie has decided it's time to move on, and I'm still hurting. And then, she sings this horribly sad song, and you're like, oh my God, I feel broken. And then he comes in and he sings this amazing song called Shik's a Goddess. And it's all about how, like, he's dated every Jewish woman in New York City, but now he's found this Shik's a Goddess, and he's in love with her. He like can't believe that he's met her. And so you've got this like wildly funny and like lovable song like right after that. And then like that's the course of the show as they progress in two different ways. So that was a show that I was really desperate to do, because I am one of those people that I had described earlier as being slightly obsessed with it.
But it's also like a really cool challenge too. A
Yes.
challenge to you and the company, a challenge to the audience, because that's not a typical structure in virtually any storytelling, to have two, the same story basically being told in parallel and reverse to each other, if that makes sense.
Yes. So we did it, and we did it in the fall of 2021. So we still had a limit on, how many people we could have in the audience. We still had masking. We still had, pretty strict COVID policies for the audience. So it was very, very well received, but it was, it was a very small audience. So that was, that's an example of a show that, we took a chance on.
Looking at more of the, I guess, classic or standard shows, what do you do with those shows to differentiate from other productions? Or is there an element of you really don't want to mess with something that's already great?
I'm not a purist. So purist in the sense of there are people who, when they see a Broadway show, they want to see the original version of the Broadway show. And I respect that. I'm not that person. I don't like, I love to go see Oklahoma, this past, version of Oklahoma where you sit at picnic benches, and it's immersive. I love to see new takes on old things, but however, there are shows that I quote unquote don't think should be messed with. And
so you're a part-time purist.
Yes. And West Side Story would be one of those shows. I just feel for me it's the perfect show. It's the perfect marriage of dance, music, and acting. I mean, you've got a score by Leonard Bernstein, you have lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, you have choreography by Jerome Robbins. I mean, somebody sold their soul to somebody to put that thing together. Because
those are all absolute titans.
Yes.
You don't mess with their business.
Exactly. So I did not see the Steven Spielberg film. I will say that right up front. But some shows, to me, they're just like they're perfect the way they are. I feel like Guys and Dolls is like that too. Guys and Dolls is a perfect show from the 1950s, and it's a beautiful or brutal, like accurate representation of what New York in the 1950s was like. And so like that's a show that I would not, we call it a friend of mine, he's the global wardrobe supervisor for The Lion King on Broadway. His name's Stacy Stevens, and we did 13 shows together. So I always call him my theater husband. And and we would do shows, and we would say, okay, are we gonna approach this like classically, like, okay, this is the show that when it opened, like, it was perfect, or are we gonna try to like do like something fun, make it our own, not crazy, but we would always call it like the shapoopy clause.
What? The what clause now?
Shapoopy, right? So shapoopy is from The Music Man, and it's a number. It's called the shapoopy. Like, it's the shapoopy dance. Like the shapoopy, 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 da 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 da. There's a very funny, if you watch Family Guy, there's a very, very funny Family Guy clip where they do the shapoopy at Gillette Stadium, and it's hilarious. But we would always say, okay, like, how far are we going to take this? Are we going to take this so far that in the middle of a scene, do we have like people come out and do the shapoopy, like shake everybody up? And then we would say, yeah, let's shake everybody up with this show. Or no, I think we're gonna handle it, in a more purist way. Art is, that's the struggle and the success of musical theater, because it's still art.
Yep.
And it's still interpreted, and you don't want to lose that, because if you lose that spark of creativity, and the fact that, like, this is, I always say to my cast, this is our show, right? There's no moment in time before or after this that this group of people will be gathered together and that will be working on this production. So that's what makes it special. It's ours. It's been a lot of other people's, but this production is ours. And I think if you lose that, and you get stuck with, oh, well, this is the pose in the souvenir program, and you're not doing that exactly correct, well, then you lose some of that art, and then it becomes a movie. And
Yeah.
I'm not in the movie business. I'm in the business of theater.
I think there's an element of just having faith that as a collective, you're a unique group. So
Yes.
even if you're sticking close to what the original production is like,
Mhm.
inevitably you're going to be bringing out different nuances, and
Yes.
different ways of portraying things, because you are still you as a group and as individual performers and directors and set designers and so on.
Yeah, and if you try to fake that, people will know.
Yeah, then you're doing karaoke or lip syncing.
Yeah.
It's like really more like Broadway lip syncing, and people know that your spirit isn't really in it.
I hate karaoke.
I love it. So I feel like I'm bashing it there, and it's really more like lip syncing. And then I think of RuPaul. I'm like, well, when you lip sync for your life, that's a totally other thing. So, I should be careful about bashing this stuff, because I really don't mean to. But it's yeah, it's like imitation versus inhabiting.
I bash karaoke only because I cannot keep up with the beat that is set.
Oh, it's personal.
Yes, it's personal. Like, I always feel, because I, was trained as a singer, so I'm used to like some give and take. And inevitably, I am always behind when I try to do karaoke, because they set those tempos. It's like singing with a metronome.
And you're also following the bouncing ball. Like, do I know all these words? Oh,
Exactly. So it's a personal issue with me and karaoke, and the inability to keep up with a tempo that was set by a computer somewhere.
Wendy, I wanted to ask you, looking at the different phases of your career, have there been shows that you look at as kind of breakthrough shows, like when you're a choreographer, director, performer? Certain shows like that was one to stand on, and I can kind of build what I do from that point on.
Yes, absolutely. So there are shows that have definitely been that, for me personally. The first one was when I was in college, and I was a freshman, and I was cast in. So I went to the Boston Conservatory, and we would have main stage. So when you go to a conservatory or go through a performing arts college, there's always a bunch of different ways that you can perform and a bunch of different shows that you can audition for. But the big ones are called main stages. So these are shows where they bring in professional directors and choreographers. And so to be in a main stage, it's pretty cutthroat, as you can imagine, because you've got all the best of all like the high school theater programs, and they're all like converging into this one, there's only like 32 people. And so when I was a freshman, I was cast in a chorus line at the Boston Conservatory, and I had a fairly decent role. I played Christine. And if for those who need a little reminder, Christine's the girl who can't sing, and she does this very funny song in the show. So I would say it's like slightly featured. So, and I was a freshman, and I was going up against seniors and people who had already done like national tours. And so when I got cast in that was another moment that I was like, oh, all right, I think I can do this. I think, I definitely think I can do this. And then going forward, my biggest challenge as a choreographer was probably Crazy for You, which some people, it's not that well known of a show, but it has 12 production numbers, which means so a production number is like a full out, like dancing, singing. It's probably one of the biggest dance shows I've ever done. And I've done it 3 times now. But the first time I did it, that up until that point, that was the biggest challenge I had ever had as a choreographer, just because of the sheer number of musical numbers and dance. And it was a tap show, but there were also like all different styles of shows. So that show was highly successful. When in 2003, I directed and choreographed Chicago, actually here at New Bedford Festival Theatre. And that was another sort of breakthrough show for me. It was nominated for some awards, and so that was a lot of fun. I directed a production of Romeo and Juliet in 2008, and that one was really special to me because I wanted to prove myself as a director beyond musical theater. And I was in a group of creatives and we all worked at this theater, and trying to decide who was going to do what show. And they said, well, Wendy, you like Shakespeare, so why don't you take this one? And I was like, oh God. But I did it, and I loved it because I brought music into it. So I created this whole soundtrack that went throughout and underscored the show. And like I put in Metallica's Enter Sandman into Romeo and Juliet.
I wish I had seen that production.
Yeah, I think I had Weezer and Missy Elliott and My Chemical Romance, and like it was actually I was super 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 duper proud of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wendy's, what's next for New Bedford Festival Theatre and for you?
So we are doing the Wiz, and this is really, really thrilling to me. I've been trying for a while to get the rights to the Wiz, and there was a complete embargo on them. And then last spring, I got an email, and it was, it was sort of cryptic. It was like, if you want the rights, you have to let us know now, and you can only do it in these times. And I was like, okay.
Out of nowhere.
It really was out of nowhere. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. Like immediately, yes, yes, yes. So come to find out, it's coming back to Broadway next year. And so they just released the rights for a small amount of time. I'm so thrilled. I think it's a perfect show for our community. I think it's a perfect opportunity to give Black performers a chance to be a part of this epic show, which is such a reflection of Black culture and community. I think it gives us an opportunity for us to, really do a show where people in the area can,
It's a very diverse area.
Yeah, exactly. We are doing a whole community outreach and education component of the show. For the first time ever, New Bedford Festival Theatre is going to do a school time performance.
Oh, nice.
And the entire 6th grade of New Bedford will be attending. And the entire 6th grade of Fairhaven will be attending, and we'll be able to do a talk back after the show. Our director and choreographer, Kenny Ingram, who did 15 years of The Lion King on Broadway, is teaching a free master class. And we're partnering with Third Eye and Boys and Girls Club of New Bedford and the YM and WCA on this, as well as many other partners. So, I'm so pumped about this, and I'm so pumped to bring, these beautiful people to New Bedford. And so when we do a show, our cast and our creatives, they come here and they live for a month. So, you have 40 to 50 people living in New Bedford, living in downtown, getting a taste of, what it's like. And these people really become ambassadors for New Bedford and for the surrounding area, because they're experiencing all the amazing things that we have. Our Beauty and the Beast cast loved Cultivator Shoals.
Great place.
Yes. So, it's great to me that, we infuse the community with these, out of town professionals, and, and then they can go on and say, guess what? New Bedford is a great city. You should definitely go there.
And they got a complete experience. So it wasn't just working here as performers, it was getting to experience the city that you're working in for that month.
Exactly. And then this summer we are doing Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, the show with the world's longest name. And we're, equally thrilled with that. Fun fact, Joseph was the first show that I ever did, on all of my acting, anything. It was the first show I ever did. And I played, so Joseph is a Bible story, if you didn't know. I played a hairy Ishmaelite.
That was not what I expected.
And they gave me a beard, and they gave me this massive wig, and I had this burlap robe.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh, okay. This is my trajectory. So yeah, and then just, starting to plan for season 34.
The planning never ends, does it?
The planning never ends. And the problem, as I'm sure you know, is that you're always thinking like 2 years in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mind is already like at the end of 2024, early 2025.
Oh my God. Wendy, is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to touch on?
Let's see. No, I'm so excited to be able to bring all of my experience to this job and to the city. I mean, when it's really fun to see people like walk into the Zeiterion for the first time, especially people who aren't from here, and they just watching their reaction and thinking like, wow, look at this like beautiful, like you have a real performing arts center. I mean, and the building is about to turn 100. So, I mean, there's so many stories and ghosts and like whatever you think, there's so much like creative and arts energy in that space that, it definitely hits you when you walk in. So I think that's like the best part of my job is, saying, yeah, you're going to come and it's going to be a great show, an amazing show. But this is where you get to be, in this theater and in this community, for this time. And, please, we've actually, for Joseph, we have somebody who's coming back for the third time within a year and a half to work with us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They're really getting to know the city.
Yes. Of course, now he's like, now he's requesting housing in different places because he knows he knows the city that well. So if anybody has an apartment over a Cultivator Shoals that we can rent.
Let's put those feelers out.
Yeah, Mr. Burchell would be very happy.
Well, Wendy, I'd like to wrap up with 5 questions I normally ask the musicians I talk to about. I've adapted them for theater.
Okay.
So I'd like to start with, what's your first memory of the theater?
My first memory of the theater was in 1979, I think, 78, 79. My parents brought me to see brought me to see Annie at the Colonial Theater in Boston, Massachusetts. And that was it might have been 79, 80. But that was the first time that I ever saw a professional show. And I remember I was in, I'm sure it was one of the mezzanines, but we had the first row, and I just remember like looking up over the mezzanine and down onto the stage, and just like an electric shock through my body of excitement.
So what's one album, could be a cast album or any album, that you would have to take to a desert island?
Oh, does it have to be theater?
It doesn't. No, I almost said one cast album. Like, it could be that. It could be any album. It's wide open.
All right. Well, oh gosh.
I know, just one. It's always hard to pick.
Oh God, just one. I would probably say, because I do like rock music and I do like punk music, My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade, which I think is one of the most beautiful albums, start to finish. And that's like every time I listen to it, that's exactly how I listen to it. I listen to it from like the verse, da 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 da, like straight through to the end, and I never mix it up. And the funnest fact, or one of the fun facts of it, is that it features Liza Minnelli on one of the songs.
Oh my God. No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, she does like this little, she sings like 2 lines, and I just think that's amazing because they're a punk rock band, but they have this little feature of Liza Minnelli.
Oh my word. Unbelievable. What's your dream production? Like a show you haven't put on that you absolutely would love to if given the chance?
Once on This Island.
Why that one?
Because it's a beautiful mixture of music and, I mean, I guess you could say fairy tale, but it's really like a legend. And, it's set in Haiti, and it has, it deals with the caste system, but it also deals with unrequited love, but it also deals with, hope and dreams. And then it also weaves in, this mythical god and goddess characters, and how they're manipulating all the characters in the show. I think it's one of the more perfect musicals. And then I also, when I think of it, I think of all the different ways you can interpret it. So that's definitely an example of you shouldn't be a purist with that one.
Got it.
You can really go to the limit in terms of creativity. And it's such a beautiful show.
Got it. Beautiful. Who is one performer, living or dead, you would want to cast in a show?
Oh, Phoebe Neworth.
Oh my word! Oh, she's amazing.
She's amazing. I really like celebrities that sort of fly under the radar, but
Yeah.
are that good?
People who are underrated, but you see them everywhere and they're constantly doing great work.
Yes. So yeah, I have such an appreciation for that, for these hardworking, insanely talented people, but they just sort of fly under the radar. So like if I say their name, like you knew who I was talking about, but I always use my husband as, well, not my husband because he doesn't know very many people, but well, he's in technology. So, but I have a best friend growing up, and we've known each other since high school, and I always call her my litmus test. So like if I'm thinking of a title of a show, I always say, because she likes theater, but she's not what I consider like a fanatical theater person. I like if she likes it or she's heard of it, and then I go, okay, then I like dig a little deeper.
Got it. We know this will fly because she knows.
Exactly. If Andrea knows, then okay, that's all right. That's good.
Last question. What is your South Coast happy place?
South Coast happy place. South Coast happy place. Oh, honestly, I would say the Fairhaven Public Library.
Okay.
I grew up in Acushnet, but my mom, she grew up in Fairhaven, and growing up there, we always went to the Fairhaven Public Library. And every time I go in there, I love being there. I think it's such a beautiful space, and I'm also kind of a nerd. Like I really like libraries. I like quiet.
Oh yeah.
So I love to, go in there and just kind of like ease my mind a little bit.
Got it. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for taking time out to talk. It's been a great conversation, and I loved hearing, your history as a professional and what goes into your work, because as a humble musician, the theater's a little bit of a mystery to me, and now it's much, much less of a mystery.
Well, it was so much fun talking to you, and and anytime you want to talk about nerdy theater, I'm happy to do so.
Right on. Wendy, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another In Focus podcast, which is generously sponsored in part by Heavenly Spirits Importers and funded in part with grants from the New Bedford Cultural Council and the Fairhaven Cultural Council, local agency supported by the Mass Cultural Council, a state agency. I'm Scott Bishop, and thanks for listening to The Artist's Index.